Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the ATU Sports Corner. I am Brandon Moix, joined here by Caden Hauser, and it is time for postseason NBA basketball. We're going to be giving you our predictions for the series that are already confirmed. Caden, what are you looking forward to with these playoffs?
You know, I think the West is really already kind of set in stone, especially for who's going to make it to the conference finals or at least make it out of the top part of the bracket. The East, especially in the middle seeds, they were all still kind of mumbled up like mid-season, even to the late season, 4 through 6, 4 through 7. It was all still not set in stone. So it's going to be interesting to see how all those seeds play out since they all had different draws. That was possible.
Yeah, there's been a lot of uncertainty in the East, and the first series we're going to talk about is one with a lot of uncertainty. The Cleveland Cavaliers are facing off against the Toronto Raptors in the 4-5 matchup. A lot of weird standing stuff down the stretch that ended up with the Raptors getting that 5 seed, but this is the matchup that we're with. And I think the Cavs are pretty solid favorites in this one. I think you'd agree.
Yeah, they come into game one at 7.5-point favorites, but this Raptors team, I honestly think they're pretty solid. Brandon Ingram is having one of the better seasons of his career, and they really don't have a terrible supporting cast. And they still have Scotty Barnes, who really hasn't had just a phenomenal year. He hasn't really blossomed into what a lot of people thought he was going to be just yet. But this could be an exact moment for him to do that in the playoffs. They have Emmanuel Quickley. They have great guards that can show up and show out, and a team that has depth, and they can make something happen. But the Cavs, last year they were really good, proved in the regular season that they could be great, and they did again this regular season. Playoffs, it really shook them. They're going to have to prove to me that they can do something in the playoffs to make me think that this is going to be a 5 or 6 game series, but I honestly think the Raptors could take them to 7.
I think it's possible, and this is a very interesting series. There's very contrasting styles in this one. The Cavs are led by 2 ball-dominant guards, Donovan Mitchell and James Harden, guys that like to get to the rim. But I do think the style that James Harden plays is kind of playing into the Raptors' hand. They have a lot of length on defense, and they're going to bother him a lot. I don't think those lob passes he likes to make are going to be quite as easy for him in this series. But the one thing for the Raptors that I'm really nervous about is who is the go-to guy. At times it's been Brandon Ingram. At times it's been R.J. Barrett. At times it's been Scotty Barnes. But the playoffs are not when you want to be wondering who that guy's going to be at the end of the game. You want certainty in that spot, and I don't really think they have that. Brandon Ingram, I think, is the closest to having experience in that aspect, but he's never really done it for a winning team. The Pelicans, there were some years where he was the main guy when they were like borderline playoff teams, but nothing where they were expected to win a series, and when you're the 5 seed, you're expected to at least compete.
But also, though, I think this Cavs team, they really don't have a whole lot of playoff experience, and one of their bigger vets is James Harden. He is notorious for not having playoff success. Do you think he's going to have that in this series?
You know, I think, like I said, this is a tough matchup for him. I think he probably will struggle a little bit in this one because of that. I am a James Harden believer. I do like James Harden. I don't really ride with the narrative of him struggling in the playoffs quite as much. I don't think this series is really going to help that narrative, though. I think Donovan Mitchell is going to be the key for the Cavs in this one. We all know he is very capable of taking on a scoring load, and he's going to do that in this series. And I think it's going to be enough for the Cavs to get the job done and move on to round 2.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Cavs will get it done, but I won't be surprised if the Raptors did upset or take this to 6 or 7 games.
Yeah, and then a very interesting part of that is that whoever wins the series will probably end up facing off with the Detroit Pistons, the 1 seed. A lot of uncertainty surrounding Cade Cunningham. Very easily, this series could decide who ends up going to the conference finals as well if Cade cannot come back healthy. But along to the other Eastern Conference series we have decided so far, the Knicks and the Hawks, the 3-6. Once again, a series we were not sure was what the matchup was going to be until very late. The Hawks have had a very strange season, all the Trae Young stuff, injuries, different guys taking different roles through different parts of the season, and now here they are in a position where I don't think they're too upset about it.
Yeah, I think if there is going to be an upset within these middle teams, the most favorable one, in my opinion, has to be this Hawks team. And I think mainly because, like you said, with all the midseason turmoil with Trae Young, with Kristaps Porzingis, with whatever it was with this team, and kind of just offloading players and having older vets in C.J. McCollum, as you can see, he's been really good for this team this year. But just kind of having an awkward roster. Jalen Johnson, he leads them in every top stat in points, rebounds, and assists. So it might be a little worrisome that they're a little lopsided up top. but this roster is not bad. Dyson Daniels has to get the jump shot going. That is going to be huge if he can score the ball. And this roster, they need to play great defense because the Knicks, everyone knows they're an offensive powerhouse. It's going to be hard to stop Jalen Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns in Madison Square Garden. But if they're playing in Atlanta, I really like the Hawks. If they can steal one in New York, at least one, I think they have a really good chance of actually winning the series.
Yeah, there won't be quite as much drama as past Hawks-Knicks games in New York with Trae Young out of the picture, but I do think that there is still some interesting guard dynamics going on here with, like you mentioned, Dyson Daniels in this matchup. I expect him to get the Jalen Brunson matchup, and I think that's not too bad of a matchup for him. Brunson's not a guy who wins on speed. He wins on footwork and pump fakes, and I think Dyson Daniels, with his great hands, I think he's disciplined enough to contain Brunson to a certain aspect and make him win with pull-up threes. Now, Brunson is, of course, capable of winning with pull-up threes, but if that's how you want to lose, like, you kind of just have to tip your cap at that point. So I think that's going to be the key for them. But the Knicks got a guard, man. Bridges, Anunoby, and Hart really need to step up. Anunoby, I believe it. He's been consistent in that aspect, but Bridges, it feels like ever since he's been in New York, hasn't really been that guy.
He's been very inconsistent. But a big aspect, I think, for this Hawks team could potentially be some of their new acquisitions, and one guy they've already had that's in the running for most improved player, and that is Nickeil Alexander-Walker. He could have a huge series. And then someone that, a lot of NBA casuals might not know, but Jonathan Kuminga has been playing decent basketball so far for the Atlanta Hawks. He could have a big series, and that could end up playing a bigger role in who wins this series. I think the Hawks have better depth. The Knicks, they've been kind of known in years previous for not having great depth under Thibodeau. They've tried to change that now. But I think new coaching wasn't the best move for this Knicks team. They're very offensive heavy, and with how good the Hawks can be defensively, and they can still score the ball decently if Jalen Johnson is going, I like the 6-seeded Hawks.
Yeah, it's interesting. The Hawks, they can score you at a lot of different places. The Knicks, you kind of know what you're in for. It's going to be Brunson, it's going to be Towns, and Anunoby, and Bridges can provide secondary stuff on the wings. But, Jalen Johnson's the leading scorer. Like you said, has been really, really good this year. Obviously, we've yet to see him play at that level in the playoffs, but C.J. McCollum has done it in the playoffs many times, and Kuminga and Okongwu are also there as well, who have been really solid scorers for them all year. I do think that they're going to give the Knicks a really tough time in this series, but I do think I'm going to rock with the Knicks to move on.
Yeah, I think that'll be our first disagreement because I'm gonna take the Hawks. I like the upset. I think the 6-seeded Hawks can advance.
I don't hate that pick at all. I was very high on the Hawks coming into this season. I think I've kind of cooled off despite the fact that they've heated up. They've been great since the All-Star break. But this is honestly might be my series in the first round that I'm most interested in watching. But on to the other side of the bracket, the Timberwolves and Nuggets are playing out west, the 3-6 matchup. Seems like the Nuggets were really trying to avoid Minnesota in the first round, but they couldn't do it. Might have wanted that 4-5 matchup instead, but they're stuck with the Timberwolves and Ant Edwards once again.
Rightfully so. I'd want to avoid this team too. You never want to face Anthony Edwards personally in the playoffs or at any time in the season, but if you're the Nuggets, you can't worry too much because you still have the second best player in the NBA in Nikola Jokic and the most skilled offensive player in the NBA. We'll give him that. He leads the Nuggets in every statistical category, average a triple-double. Great player. And Anthony Edwards, he can score the basketball like no other. It's going to have to be the supporting cast around Anthony Edwards that's going to win them these games because we all know the Nuggets defense is atrocious. They rank 21st overall in defense in the league in meaningful minutes. So if they're going to perform, we already know they're not going to do it on the defensive side. It's just kind of known. So Jamal Murray is going to have to step up if the Nuggets are going to win. And people like Julius Randle are going to have to step up for people on the Timberwolves. They're going to win. It's going to be supporting cast because Jokic and Anthony Edwards, they're going to do theirs regardless.
Yeah, this has been a really weird year for the Nuggets. Cam Johnson, who was very highly anticipated joining the team with that MPJ trade, just really has not lived up to those expectations. Christian Brown has been banged up and hasn't really made quite as big of a leap as he did last season. Aaron Gordon's been hurt what feels like all year. But Jamal Murray has been playing out of his mind. I will give you that. He's shooting the cover off the ball. But there's just been a lot of uncertainty with this Nuggets team this year. It feels like that's kind of been a trend these last few years. But one bright spot is Peyton Watson. He is absolutely taking a scoring leap. We'll see if that can continue into the playoffs. But the Nuggets are going to have to find offense outside of Jokic and Murray. We know those guys can make shots. We know what they're capable of. But can Johnson, can Tim Hardaway, can Christian Brown, can Aaron Gordon, even though he's been banged up, and can Peyton Watson, can they find buckets? Because we know that this Timberwolves defense is going to be keyed in on Jokic and Murray.
So when it comes down to it and you're looking at these supporting casts outside of these two absolute superstars, are you going to trust Julius Randle, Jaden McDaniels, whoever else is going to step up for that team, or are you going to trust the Cam Johnsons and Aaron Gordons and Christian Browns?
I don't feel great trusting either side, to be honest with you. This is a really tough series for me once again. I think I do trust Jokic, to be honest with you. I just trust that guy. Whether it's the supporting cast or not, I think if this series gets bogged down and ugly, I think that if there's any guy who can will your team to a win in this series, it is Nikola Jokic, and I think that's probably about the type of series we're going to get.
Yeah, I'm going to rock with the Nuggets as well, and I'm afraid that the Timberwolves get in a worrisome situation if they got down 3-2, 3-1, and they start to get on the heels in that game. We saw last year whenever they played the Thunder in Game 5, which, of course, I know that's a different beast. Anthony Edwards kind of just shut down. The whole team just kind of gave up. They knew they were out of the series. So if the Nuggets can get a threshold on that series, it might be very, very scary for Timberwolves fans.
Yeah, I mean, Ant Edwards is just going to have to be, once again, an absolute different beast. I'm not going to trust Julius Randle. He's just like, if there's one guy who people will talk about not being trustworthy in the NBA, it's probably Julius Randle.
And one of my favorite shots in NBA history, it was whenever these two teams played in the playoffs. I don't remember how long ago it was. Rudy Gobert fadeaway midi.
Oh my goodness.
At the shot clock.
Yeah.
Fadeaway. He's like shot it like that. It was.
Things get weird when these teams face off in the playoffs, and it happens often. It feels like every single year they end up running into each other. This time it is once again in the first round, and I do think that the Nuggets will be able to get the job done. Once again, not a series I feel terribly confident about, but I will believe in Jokic just a little bit more than Ant.
Yeah.
But the other first-round series, the last one we're going to talk about today, one that kind of has a little bit of a cloud hanging over it. The Lakers versus the Rockets, of course, the injury to Luka Doncic. What's his health looking like? He went to Spain to go get some special treatment. Austin Reeves has been dealing with some back issues. Of course, LeBron is LeBron. He's getting up there in age, but this one is – we really just have no clue what this series is going to look like even to this point.
Yeah, I think a lot of it will depend on Luka health because I do not trust this Rockets team too much. But I also don't trust the Lakers. Both these teams, whoever advances, they're going to face the Thunder, and they're not going to win. So regardless of who wins this series, they're not making it to the Western Conference Finals. And me personally, for the storyline both ways, I would love to face KD or Luka because everyone was talking about how Luka was better than Shea, could have potentially won the MVP, and KD – playing the Thunder, we can knock them out in the playoffs. What's better than that? And honestly, I'd rather have the KD matchup just because it hit home a lot more, especially having him in the Paycom Center for a playoff series. That'd be poetic justice. So that'd be great. I think the Rockets can definitely pull this out, especially with Luka being injured. LeBron has been very on and off with great games this season. Austin Reeves, he's going to have to play at a high level, especially when Luka's out. And I think the talent on this Rockets team, I think Amin Thompson's going to be a big player in this series. He's going to play a big role. And I think the Rockets could handle this in potentially 5 or 6 games.
I don't think that's ridiculous. One interesting aspect of this series to me has been that the Lakers have really struggled with very athletic teams this year, and I think that's exactly what the Rockets are. Amin Thompson, of course, is maybe the best athlete in the NBA. Jabari Smith, Reed Shepherd, Tari Eason, like these are guys who are very athletic. I think they're going to cause a lot of problems for the Lakers, jumping passing lanes, putting pressure on the ball. But, I mean, really, whether or not this series is even competitive to me comes down to what's the deal with Luka. Does he play? When does he play? And if he plays, should he even be out there? Because hamstrings are a very difficult thing to deal with. We've seen it many a time in these last few years where guys have come back too early and caused permanent damage. We've seen guys in the regular season rest for a long time just to avoid that. So what does his timeline look like? And if he does play, how healthy is he, and how how much of himself is he really?
Yeah, so this playoff bracket's only been out, a couple days now, and it opened at 4.5 points in favor of the Rockets. It's in LA. It's at Crypto.com Arena. Opened at 4.5. It's already moved up a whole point to 5.5 in favor of the Rockets. How much is that entailing to the Rockets' success, and how much they think that the Luka injury is going to affect? Because LA at home, that's going to be scary, but they're still 5.5-point underdogs.
It's tough, man. I really just – I feel like Vegas is just completely hedging this series on Luka. I think if Luka is expected to go, I think Vegas is going to favor LA in every single game that he plays, and every single game he doesn't, I think they will favor Houston. I still think I might lean Houston in a 7-game series very, very narrowly if Luka did play. That's also with the Austin Reeves injury too, though, by the way. There's too much uncertainty for this Lakers team for me to trust them.
They have both their estimated return dates on ESPN as May 1st, and that's going to be a good bit into that series. Like closer to game 5, 6, back to the back end of that series. If they're out till then, the Rockets can get some work done early.
Yeah, I mean, it's not fun to just sit here and on a prediction segment be like, well, we don't really know, but we really don't. These
are great
so
series.
It's going to be interesting, but we really just don't know what's going to happen in this one. And I think it's going to be maybe the most interesting series storyline-wise, maybe not actual on-court game-wise, but it's going to be very interesting to see how things go down. But that's about all the time we have for you today. Thank you guys so much for watching. We got a super show coming up here in a couple weeks, so be sure to be ready for that, and we'll see you next time.